I had spent 3 years learning how not to be noticed by heroes, and it took America's greatest one less than 30 seconds to ruin all that work. The trick was never to run. Running made people curious. You crossed the street before the motorcade arrived, kept your head down when capes landed nearby, and acted mildly inconvenienced when everyone else started filming. That morning, I was carrying 2 coffees through downtown Baltimore when the emergency sirens began. People rushed toward the noise because apparently self-preservation had gone out of style the moment heroes became attractive. I stepped into the doorway of a closed pharmacy and checked the reflection in the glass. Smoke curled above the intersection. Police barriers unfolded across the street. Then Grant Mercer dropped out of the sky. The crowd reacted exactly as expected. Phones rose. Someone screamed his name. A woman beside me whispered, "Oh my God," like the country's most famous man had personally answered her prayers. Grant landed hard enough to shake dust from the pharmacy awning, then stood in the middle of the street looking unfairly calm. Blue uniform, silver insignia, broad shoulders designed by a committee with no respect for subtlety. America's greatest hero, according to every news network, magazine cover, and cereal box I had successfully avoided. I turned away. That should have been the end of it. Then I heard metal groan overhead. A construction scaffold had buckled above the crowd, one support cable snapping loose while everyone stared at Grant instead of the 600 pounds of steel preparing to fall on them. "Move," I said. Nobody did. So I shoved both coffees into the hands of the stunned woman beside me, grabbed a little boy by the back of his jacket, and pulled him behind the pharmacy's stone column. His father followed half a second later. The scaffold came down with a shriek. Grant caught the largest section before it hit the sidewalk. The impact cracked the pavement. People cheered. I checked the boy for blood, saw none, and started walking. "Sir." Grant's voice carried through the noise with the kind of effortless authority that made entire rooms reconsider their choices. I kept moving. Gray jacket. I looked down at my gray jacket and briefly considered setting it on fire. The boy's father caught my arm. "You saved him." I moved him 6 feet. "You saw it before anyone." That was exactly the kind of sentence I did not need said loudly. I pulled free, not roughly, and glanced toward the intersection. Grant was still holding the twisted scaffold above one shoulder while emergency crews cleared the area. He wasn't looking at the wreckage. He was looking at me. Not casually. Not with the vague gratitude heroes gave civilians before returning to cameras. His eyes tracked my position through the crowd as if he had already marked the distance between us, the exits behind me, and the fact that I wanted nothing from him. My stomach tightened. I turned the corner and walked faster. Still not running. Never running. By the time I reached the diner where I worked, 1 coffee had survived and neither of them belonged to me anymore. My coworker, Mia, took one look at my empty hands. "You lost the order again?" A national icon dropped construction equipment on it. "Grant Mercer?" She leaned over the counter, suddenly delighted. Was he as hot in person as democracy intended? I tied on my apron. He looked expensive. That is not a no. It was aggressively not an answer. She laughed and slid a new cup toward me. The morning rush gave me something useful to do. Refill mugs. Carry plates. Ignore the television mounted above the register, where footage of the scaffold collapse appeared every 12 minutes. The camera had caught Grant's landing, the falling steel, and a gray blur dragging a child clear. My face remained mostly hidden. Mostly was an unacceptable percentage. At noon, the anchor slowed the footage. Grant stood beneath the scaffold, turning his head before it fell. Not toward the cable. Toward me. "Huh," Mia said. I kept polishing the same clean glass. "What?" "He saw you." "He saw a crowd." "No." She pointed at the screen. "He saw you before the thing fell." The replay continued. Grant caught the scaffold. I moved away. His gaze followed. The camera zoomed just enough to show his expression changing. Not recognition. Exactly, but focus. The look of a man who had found a question and disliked not knowing the answer. I set the glass down too hard. Changed the channel. Mia studied me instead of the remote. "Evan, did you do something?" "I went to work." "That is not what I asked." "It's the only answer you're getting." She knew when to stop. Most people didn't. The television switched to weather, and I spent the rest of my shift pretending the tightness between my shoulders was from carrying trays. At closing, I left through the kitchen, circled 2 blocks, and checked every reflective window without turning my head. No uniforms. No reporters. No famous men floating above the rooftops. By the time I reached my apartment, I almost believed distance had worked. Then I found the replacement coffee sitting on the front step. Plain paper cup. No logo. Still warm. My name was written across the lid in neat black ink. Under it, 5 words. You left before I thanked you. No signature. It did not need one. I looked up and down the empty hallway, every old instinct coming awake at once. Grant Mercer had not followed me home. That would have been easier. Someone who followed could be avoided. Someone who had found me without being seen was a different problem entirely. I carried the cup inside without drinking it, locked the door, and told myself America's greatest hero would lose interest by morning. Even then, I knew I was lying. I did not sleep. The coffee sat on my kitchen counter until sunrise, untouched and somehow more threatening than a bomb with a countdown. At 6:30, I poured it down the sink, crushed the cup, and buried both pieces beneath 3 layers of trash. By 8, Grant Mercer was sitting in my section at the diner. He had chosen the corner booth with a clear view of both exits, which meant either he was naturally paranoid or he had noticed I was. Neither option improved my mood. Mia appeared beside me with 2 menus pressed to her chest. Your expensive-looking problem is here. He is not my problem. He asked for you by name. Then he's definitely my problem. Grant looked different without smoke, sirens, and several tons of steel balanced over one shoulder. Still broad enough to make the booth seem undersized, still impossible to mistake for anyone else, but dressed in a dark jacket and plain shirt instead of the uniform printed on half the merchandise in America. A baseball cap might have helped. He had not worn one. Apparently subtlety was for civilians. I approached with a coffee pot and stopped outside arm's reach. You found the diner. You weren't difficult to find. That isn't reassuring. His gaze dropped briefly to the pot, then returned to my face. You didn't drink the coffee. I don't accept beverages from men who locate my apartment without permission. Something shifted in his expression. Not guilt exactly. Recognition. I didn't go to your apartment. The cup developed handwriting on its own. A city liaison identified you from the incident report. I asked them to deliver it. That sentence somehow got worse in the middle. Mia coughed behind the counter to hide a laugh. Grant glanced toward her, then back at me. I was trying to thank you. You could have let me leave. You pulled a child out of danger before anyone else realized there was danger. The cable snapped. I know. His answer came too quickly. I set the coffee pot down. Then why are you here? Because you saw it first. Congratulations. We have reached the same sentence the boy's father shouted in front of 100 cameras. Grant leaned back slightly, giving me space without making a performance of it. Most people were looking at me. That must be difficult for you. The corner of his mouth moved. Almost a smile. Sometimes. That was not the answer I expected, and I disliked him slightly more for noticing. I picked up the pot. Order something or leave. Coffee. Bold choice. And eggs. Braver than they say. He let me walk away. No command to stay. No hand on my wrist. No casual reminder that he could turn the entire building into a locked room by standing in front of the door. It should have made me relax. Instead, I spent the next 20 minutes aware of exactly where he was without looking directly at him. He ate quietly. He thanked Mia when she refilled his cup. He ignored 3 people who tried to photograph him until one aimed a phone toward the kitchen, where I was standing. Then he lifted his eyes, and the phone disappeared. I hated that I noticed. When I brought the check, Grant placed a folded card beside it. My number. I have a phone book. Not for this number. That line probably works better when you're wearing the uniform. His expression stayed calm, but his voice lowered. Someone accessed the city incident report after I did. The humor left the space between us. Who? I don't know yet. Then why tell me? Because your name was on it. I looked at the card without touching it. You said a city liaison identified me. They did. And now someone else has my address. Possibly. The word tightened every muscle in my back. Grant noticed. Of course he did. I can arrange protection, he said. No, you didn't let me finish. You were going to assign someone to watch me. Temporarily. Still no. Evan. The way he said my name was steady, not sharp, but it carried the assumption that once he understood the danger, his decision should become mine. I stepped closer so I could keep my voice down. You do not get to put people outside my home because you think it's efficient. His jaw shifted. If someone used restricted access to find you, efficiency matters. To you. To keeping you alive. Those are not automatically the same thing. For the first time, Grant looked irritated. Not angry. More like a man confronted with a door that had failed to open after he used the correct key. What do you suggest? I suggest you stop saying protection when you mean surveillance. Silence held for a beat. Then he nodded once. Fair. The word landed harder than an argument would have. I had expected pressure. Authority. Maybe a calm speech about responsibility. I had not expected him to concede anything. Grant slid the card closer, but stopped before it crossed into my space. Call if anything changes. No one will be assigned to you without your agreement. And the report. I'll find out who accessed it. Without accessing the rest of my life. His eyes stayed on mine. Without accessing the rest of your life. I took the card because leaving it, there would have been more dramatic than I could tolerate. Grant paid, tipped enough to make Mia briefly believe in national institutions, and walked out without asking me another question. I watched him through the window despite myself. He paused on the sidewalk, scanned the street, then looked back at the diner. Not at the building. At me. This time I did not move away fast enough to pretend it had not happened. That evening, I changed my route home 3 times. No one followed. My apartment door was locked, the hallway empty, and nothing waited on the step. For 12 full minutes, I thought Grant had kept his word, and the problem might end there. Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The city report had been accessed using credentials belonging to a man who had been dead for 8 months. Beneath that was a second message. I have not sent anyone to your building. If you see someone, don't approach them. I stared at the screen, then at the dark window across my living room. A shape moved behind the glass in the building opposite mine. Maybe a curtain, maybe a person. I turned off the lamp and stepped away from the window. Avoiding Grant had been simple when he was the only danger I could see. Now someone else knew where I lived, and the one person offering answers was the hero I least wanted inside my life. The shape in the building across from mine moved again, and this time I knew it was a person. I killed the rest of the lights, backed away from the window, and pulled Grant's card from my wallet. I had spent the entire day refusing to call him. It took one silhouette and a dead man's credentials to make pride feel like a luxury item. He answered before the second ring. Evan. No greeting. No surprise. Just my name, already sharpened by attention. There's someone across the street. Can you see them clearly? No, are you alone? Yes. Lock the bedroom window. It is locked. Move away from the front door. I did not move. You said you wouldn't send anyone. I didn't. Then don't start giving orders. A pause. Not long, but long enough to prove he was choosing his next words. Tell me what you need. That stopped me. I looked toward the dark window. The figure had vanished. Answers, I said, and no team outside my apartment. Agreed. No entering without permission. Agreed. No tracking my phone. Another pause. Grant. Agreed. You hesitated. Because it would be useful. That is not the same as allowed. I know. The words sounded like they cost him something. Stay away from the window. I'll be there in 4 minutes. That was not one of the conditions. No, he said calmly. But you called me. He arrived in 3. I heard no sirens, no impact on the roof, no dramatic announcement from the sky. Just a knock, 3 measured taps, followed by, it's Grant. I'm alone. I checked the peephole anyway. He stood in the hallway wearing the same dark jacket from the diner, hands visible, expression controlled. I opened the door, but left the chain on. His eyes moved over my face, the hallway behind me, then the chain. May I come in? You may stand there. The person across the street may still have a view of your doorway. I hated that he was right. I closed the door, removed the chain, and let him in. Grant crossed the threshold without touching anything. He did not scan my apartment like an investigator, although I could see the effort it took not to. Window, he asked. I pointed. He approached from the side rather than standing directly in front of it and looked through a narrow gap in the curtain. No movement. Very comforting. I'm not trying to comfort you. Good. You're bad at it. A quiet breath left him. Almost a laugh. Then he turned serious again. The credentials used on the report belonged to Daniel Hurst, municipal records analyst. Dead 8 months. Natural causes? Car accident. And his access still worked? It shouldn't have. But it did. Yes. The words settled into the room. I folded my arms. Why would anyone use a dead analyst's credentials to find me? That's what I'm trying to determine. Try faster. I intend to. He stepped toward the door. You should leave tonight. No, Grant stopped. Evan, you don't get to relocate me because someone looked through a database. Someone may have been watching your apartment. Then, find out who. I can do that while you're somewhere secure. Secure according to whom? His jaw tightened. According to people trained to keep civilians alive. People like you? Yes. That is not the argument you think it is. For a moment, the room felt smaller. Grant stood perfectly still, which somehow made his size more noticeable. What do you suggest? He asked. It was the same question from the diner, but this time there was less irritation in it. More restraint. I looked toward the window, then back at him. I stay here tonight. I don't recommend that. I didn't ask for a recommendation. I noticed. You check the building across the street. You tell me what you find. You do not enter my apartment again without permission, and nobody sits outside my door pretending not to be security. Grant considered it. You should also know something. That sentence never improves my evening. The report access wasn't limited to your address. Whoever used those credentials also opened the full incident file, meaning witness statements, video timestamps, emergency response records. My stomach went cold. The boy. Grant's attention sharpened. What about him? His father gave a statement. Their information would be there too. It's protected. So was mine. The silence changed. Grant reached for his phone. What are you doing? Checking whether their records were accessed. You said the full file was opened. Open doesn't mean copied. And you're willing to gamble on that. He looked at me, then down at the screen. The controlled certainty he carried everywhere had shifted by half an inch. It was enough. You saw the cable before it snapped, he said. You recognized the report risk before I did. I worked records intake for a law office before the diner. People assume files are safe because systems call them protected. They aren't. Grant lowered the phone. Then I need you to walk me through what someone could extract. Need is a strong word. It's an accurate one. I looked at him for a long moment. Helping him meant involvement. Involvement meant questions, visibility, and exactly the kind of attention I had built my life to avoid. But a child's name might be sitting in the same stolen file as mine. Walking away would not make that untrue. One condition, I said. You don't make decisions about me without me. I can agree to that. You already agreed not to track my phone after considering it. His mouth tightened. Then make it 2 conditions. You tell me when you think I'm wrong before you act like I'm not in the room. Grant held my gaze. Agreed. I pulled my old laptop from a cabinet and set it on the table. Then sit down. He did, but when he reached for the computer, I moved it out of range. I said sit. I didn't say touch. For the first time all night, Grant smiled properly. It was brief, tired, and unexpectedly human. Understood. We spent the next hour mapping what the incident file contained, who could access it, and which records would expose the boy's family fastest. Grant took notes without interrupting until I pointed out a municipal archive mirror the official system did not flag in real time. His expression changed. That wasn't in the security review. Because heroes keep hiring people who think deleting a door means nobody can enter the house. You enjoy this. I enjoy being right. I noticed. By midnight, we had a list of vulnerable records and one conclusion neither of us liked. Whoever accessed the file knew exactly how the city's systems failed. Grant stood, slid his phone into his pocket, and stopped at the door. I'll check the other building myself. No team. Not unless I find something that requires one. And the family? I'll confirm they're safe without exposing why. I nodded. He opened the door, then looked back. Not at my apartment. At me. You were right to call. Don't make me regret it. I won't try to. It was an oddly careful promise. After he left, I locked the door and stared at the laptop still open on my table. I had not trusted Grant Mercer. Not yet. But I had chosen to help him, and he had listened when I told him how. That was more dangerous than being watched from across the street. It meant there would be a next conversation. The next conversation happened 6 hours later, in the diner's walk-in freezer, because Grant Mercer had apparently decided privacy was easier to achieve between boxes of frozen hash browns. This is ridiculous, I said, folding my arms against the cold. You asked for somewhere without cameras. I'm in an office. The city offices have cameras. Of course they do. Grant stood beside a shelf of frozen pie crusts, still wearing yesterday's jacket, though now there was a tear near one shoulder and a streak of dust across his collar. He looked like America's greatest hero had lost an argument with a condemned apartment building. Did you find the person across the street? I asked. The apartment was empty. That sounds reassuring. It wasn't. He handed me a printed photo. The room across from mine had been cleared out except for a chair facing the window and a cheap digital camera on a tripod. No fingerprints. No personal belongings. No one on the building's tenant list matched the unit. How long? I asked. The camera had footage from 2 days. So they started before the scaffold fell? No. The first file began 43 minutes after the incident report was entered. I stared at the photo. Someone had moved fast. The boy's family? Safe. Their record was opened, but their address wasn't copied. You can tell that? Not with certainty. You really know how to make good news feel terrible. I've been told. By entire committees, I assume. A tired smile crossed his face. It disappeared almost immediately, but not before I saw it. The archive mirror you identified logged a second access attempt, he said. This morning. Using Hearst's credentials? A different set. Also inactive. Dead. Retired. Progress. Grant's gaze settled on me. I need your help tracing the access pattern. I looked at the photo again. You have federal analysts. They're looking for a breach. And you think I'm looking for what? A habit. That answer was better than I wanted it to be. He had listened last night. More importantly, he had understood. I have a shift, I said. Mia is covering it. I looked toward the freezer door. You talked to Mia? She offered before I asked. That sounds like Mia. She also said if I got you killed, she would find a way. To make it embarrassing. That definitely sounds like Mia. Grant waited. No command. No careful speech about public safety. Just the question sitting between us. 2 hours, I said. Somewhere I choose. Agreed. We ended up in the back room of a neighborhood library, using an old staff terminal that had never been connected to the city network. Grant had arrived with 3 encrypted drives and no idea how to work the library printer. I watched him press the same button twice. You can lift a city bus. Yes. But double-sided printing is where the nation's finest finally meet their limit. The interface is poorly designed. Your courage in admitting that will inspire children. He gave me a flat look. I took the papers from him before he accidentally declared war on the copier. We spent the next hour comparing timestamps. The stolen credentials changed, but the user's behavior did not. Every access began with the public incident log, moved to emergency response, then open municipal archives in the same order. Not random, not broad. Someone had a process. They're following the chain from visible event to private person, I said. They didn't start with me. They started with the scaffold. Grant leaned closer to the screen, close enough that I noticed he smelled like cold air and concrete dust. I shifted my chair an inch away. He noticed that too and immediately stepped back. No comment. No offended expression. Just space, returned without being requested. It was such a small thing that I almost missed how much it mattered. Can the pattern identify them? He asked. Not directly, but people repeat shortcuts. I pointed to 3 archive requests. These should have been sorted by department. They sorted by record age. Meaning whoever did this learned on an older system. Probably municipal, maybe legal records. They trust dates more than categories. Grant studied the screen. You're sure? No. I'm useful, not magical. I didn't say magical. You were thinking it very patriotically. That earned another brief smile. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it, and something in his face closed. What? I asked. Nothing you need to handle. The warmth vanished so quickly it left a draft. That sounds a lot like deciding for me. Grant went still. The phone remained in his hand. I expected him to tell me it was classified, dangerous, above my clearance, or any of the phrases powerful men used when they wanted obedience to sound professional. Instead, he turned the screen toward me. A traffic camera had captured a vehicle leaving the building across from mine. The license plate belonged to a city fleet car reported scrapped 3 years ago. The vehicle was seen near the diner this morning, he said. My pulse jumped. How near? Across the block. And you weren't going to tell me? I was deciding how. That is not better. No, he said quietly. It isn't. He set the phone on the table between us, screen facing up. You asked me to tell you when I thought you were wrong before acting like you weren't in the room. I nearly failed. Nearly. I showed you. I hated that he was technically correct. Congratulations on clearing the lowest possible bar. Thank you. His expression was serious, but the answer was dry enough that I laughed before I could stop myself. The sound surprised both of us. Grant looked at me like he had discovered something more interesting than the access logs. I cleared my throat. Don't make that weird. I wasn't going to. You were watching me. I do that. The honesty landed differently this time. Less like a warning, more like a fact neither of us knew what to do with. I turned back to the records. The fleet number might connect to the old municipal garage. If the person learned on the previous system, they may have used physical archives too. That facility closed 5 years ago. Closed isn't the same as empty. Grant nodded once. I'll inspect it. We'll inspect the records around it. Evan, I'm not asking to fly through a broken roof with you. I'm saying I can trace the archive requests while you check the building. He considered that, then placed one encrypted drive beside my hand without crossing into my space. You set the access limits. It was the first time he had handed me something sensitive without trying to control how I used it. I looked at the drive, then at him. 2 hours became 3. I noticed. That was not permission to look pleased. Understood. He was still pleased. By the time we left the library, we had a location, a method, and the first workable division of responsibility between us. I did not trust Grant Mercer. But when he asked before taking the drive back, I gave it to him. And when he said he would call before acting on anything I found, I believed he would at least try. I expected Grant to call before acting on anything I found. I did not expect him to call at 2:17 in the morning and ask whether I was awake. You knew I was, I said, sitting up on the couch. You answered on the first ring. That proves nothing. It proves you were awake. America is lucky to have you. There was wind behind his voice and something metallic scraping in the distance. Where are you? Outside the old municipal garage. I looked at the encrypted drive still connected to my laptop. You said you'd call before acting. I'm calling. Before means before you arrive. I haven't entered. That distinction sounded deliberate. I opened the archive map I had been studying for the last hour. The East Office wing was sealed after a pipe collapse. If someone has been using paper records, they'll avoid the main storage room and use the intake corridor. Why? Older files were logged there before transfer. Fewer cameras. More blind spots. Silence. Then, can you guide me through it? I stared at the screen. He had federal analysts, enhanced senses, and a national security clearance. He was asking me, not ordering, not pretending my answer was optional. Video call, I said. You show me what you see, and you do not open anything marked environmental hazard. Agreed. You agreed too fast. I'm learning. The image appeared a moment later. Grant stood beneath a broken security light, his face pale in the phone's glow. The garage behind him was a black concrete block with boarded windows and weeds pushing through the lot. You look terrible, I said. Good morning to you too. That was my good morning. He angled the camera toward a side entrance. The lock had already been cut, not forced. Cut cleanly and left hanging in place. Someone wants the building to look sealed from a distance, I said. So they expect people to glance, not inspect. You sound pleased. Patterns are polite. People aren't. Grant slipped inside. I guided him through a hallway lined with peeling paint and rusted filing cabinets. He moved quietly for a man built like a federal monument. Twice, he stopped before I saw anything. Once for a loose wire stretched ankle high. Once because the floor ahead had been weakened. How did you know? I asked. The dust is wrong. That is annoyingly vague. There's less of it where someone stepped. You could have said that first. You would have called it obvious. He knew me well enough to be irritating accurately. The intake corridor ended at a steel door marked records processing. Grant reached for the handle, then stopped. May I? The question was so unexpected I nearly laughed. Check the frame first. He did. A thin black sensor had been taped above the hinge. Alarm. Maybe a counter. Someone wants to know if the door opens. Grant looked into the camera. Your choice. The words tightened something in my chest. He could have torn the wall out. Instead, he was waiting. I studied the feed and the old floor plan. There's a service panel 3 feet to your left. Cut power to the corridor, then open it. If the sensor is local, it dies. If it reports remotely, we learn someone still cares about this place. And if cutting power triggers it, then we learn faster. Comforting. I'm not trying to comfort you. His mouth curved. You're bad at it. He killed the power. The image went black for half a second before his phone adjusted. Then he opened the door. Inside, rows of shelves had been stripped almost bare. One folding table remained beneath a battery lamp, covered in copied incident reports. Not random incidents. structural failures, transit accidents, emergency evacuations. Each file contained witness names, response times, and access notes. My stomach dropped. They're not collecting people, I said. They're collecting reactions. Grant moved closer. Beside each witness list, someone had marked who noticed danger. First, who followed instructions, who resisted, and who changed the outcome. My name appeared on the newest page. Evan Cole. Observed hazard before Mercer. Avoided debrief. Resistant to contact. Grant went very still. Don't touch it, I said. There could be prints. There aren't. His voice had changed. Lower. Controlled too carefully. Grant. They've been tracking civilian behavior around hero incidents. Yes. And you're on the list because of me. I'm on the list because I moved a kid. They noticed you because I did. The words came out flat, but guilt sat underneath them. He turned away from the table, and for the first time since I had met him, he looked less like the most powerful man in the room and more like someone who had missed a warning sign he believed he should have seen. You don't get to make this entirely your fault, I said. That is an unusual complaint. I'm serious. So am I. You catching the scaffold didn't create whoever made those files. My attention made you easier to identify. My decision made me visible. He looked back at the camera. You saved a child. I chose to move him. I chose to help you trace the records. I am still choosing. Grant said nothing. Do not turn me into something that happened to you. I added. I'm not one of your missed warning signs. The silence stretched. Then his shoulders lowered by a fraction. You're right. No argument. No defensive explanation. Just the words. I know, I said. Try not to sound shocked. That earned a tired breath of laughter, but his eyes stayed serious. What do you want me to do? He asked. I studied the table through the screen. Every old instinct told me to disconnect, pack a bag, and become someone else before sunrise. Instead, I zoomed in on the access notes. One file had been moved recently. The dust beneath it was cleaner than the rest. Photograph everything, I said. Then check the empty space on the third shelf. Grant followed the direction and found a narrow ledger tucked behind the metal support. Inside were dates, locations, and initials arranged beside hero response incidents going back years. No names, no explanation, but the pattern was bigger than my apartment, bigger than the scaffold, and far more organized than one stolen password. Grant looked at the ledger, then at me through the phone. I can bring this to federal security. And lose control of who sees my name? Possibly. He did not soften it. Then not yet. Evan, this could involve multiple agencies. I heard you. Keeping it contained may increase the risk. So would handing it to the same kind of system they already breached. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the hero was back in his posture, but not in his answer. Then we document it, secure it, and decide together who gets access. Together. The word should not have felt as dangerous as it did. Good, I said. And Grant. Yes. Get out before whoever monitors that sensor arrives. He glanced toward the corridor. A red light had appeared above the dead service panel. They already know, he said. Then stop watching the files and move. He obeyed. I stayed on the call as he left the building, listening to his breathing, the crunch of gravel, the distant rise of an engine somewhere beyond the lot. When he reached open ground, he turned the camera toward his face. I'm clear. Relief hit before I could stop it. Good. Grant watched me through the screen, and this time I understood the difference. He was not studying a problem. He was checking whether I was still there. I was. That was the first thing between us I had chosen without needing a reason. Grant stayed on the call until he reached a secure location, which turned out to be a private maintenance hangar outside the city. He sent me photographs of every page from the ledger, then waited while I checked the metadata before transferring anything. You can stop hovering, I said. I'm not hovering. You have asked whether the files opened correctly 4 times. That is quality control. That is hovering with a government budget. His mouth almost smiled on the screen. Did they open correctly? 5 times. Evan. Yes, they opened. For 20 minutes, it felt almost normal. We worked through dates and initials, comparing old incidents against public records. Then one entry matched the scaffold collapse. Exactly, including a notation made 40 minutes before the cable failed. I sat forward. Grant. He heard the change in my voice. What? This was an observation after the fact. I turned the screen toward the camera. They logged the location before the incident. His face emptied of everything but focus. Can you prove the timestamp is authentic? Not yet. Then send me the raw image. You already have access. Send it anyway. I did, mostly because arguing would waste time. 3 minutes later, his phone rang. He muted our call, but stayed visible while he answered. I watched his posture change as someone on the other end delivered worse news. By the time he returned, the brief warmth between us had been replaced by something colder. The Federal Response Office wants the ledger immediately, he said. How do they know about it? The garage sensor triggered a priority alert. That doesn't answer my question. The building was on a dormant infrastructure watch list. And they learned you found a ledger from a door sensor? Grant's jaw tightened. They know I recovered material. Then they know too much. They also have resources we need. Resources inside the same network someone has been using for years. Not everyone in the system is compromised. You don't know who is. Neither do you. The sentence landed harder than it should have. Maybe because it was true. Maybe because his voice had shifted back into the tone he used when deciding things for people who were not in the room. So what happens now? I asked. I secure the physical ledger. A restricted team analyzes the files. Which team? I haven't chosen yet. Then we choose one together. This may move beyond what I can share with a civilian. There it was. Civilian. A category large enough to erase every useful thing I had done. I leaned back. Interesting timing. That isn't what I meant. You meant I was qualified when you needed the archive mapped, but now I'm a liability. I mean, the situation has escalated. So has my address being watched. Grant exhaled slowly. Evan, this isn't about shutting you out. Then don't. Silence. He looked away first. I need to make decisions quickly, and I need to know whether those decisions put my name in front of more people. I can protect your identity. You thought the incident report was protected. His expression hardened, not at me exactly, but at the memory of being wrong. That is why I am taking this seriously. Taking it seriously does not mean taking it away. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Grant said, I will not transfer anything without telling you. It was not the same as asking. We both knew it. Still, it was something. Good, I said. And I'll keep reviewing the copies. From your apartment? That is where my computer lives. You shouldn't stay there. We had this conversation. Before we learned the scaffold may have been planned. And now you think fear should make the decision for me. I think someone placed a camera across from your home within an hour of your name entering a file. I know. I was there. His control slipped by a fraction. You were almost targeted by an operation we do not understand. Almost targeted is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Do not minimize this. Do not enlarge it until you have permission to own my life. The word stopped him. I could see the conflict in his face. Concern pulling one way, habit pulling the other. Finally, he nodded. I'll send you 2 location options. You choose whether to use either. No guards without agreement. Agreed. No trackers. Another pause. Shorter this time. Agreed. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like holding a door closed while pressure built on the other side. By noon, my face had escaped the internet. Someone had enhanced the diner footage and posted a still image beside a headline asking why Grant Mercer had returned to the same neighborhood 3 times in 2 days. The image was grainy, but Mia recognized me before I finished reading. You look terrible in high definition, she said. That is not high definition. Then there's hope. She took my phone and scrolled. Comments multiplied faster than I could read them. Some call me a witness. Some called me Grant's informant. One account had posted the block where I lived. The address was wrong, but only by 2 buildings. Mia's humor disappeared. Evan, I see it. You're not going home. I am not moving because strangers online failed geography. That was almost funny. I'm conserving energy. The diner door opened. Grant walked in wearing his uniform. Every conversation stopped. Cameras rose before he reached the counter. I felt anger before relief, which told me more than I wanted to know. You wore the suit, I said quietly. The street outside is being monitored, and this helps. It makes anyone watching me visible. It also confirms I matter. His eyes flicked toward the phones around us. He knew I was right. Come with me, he said. Ask. The room stayed silent. Grant held my gaze, then changed course. Will you come with me? It was a small correction under terrible conditions. I hated how much it mattered. Where? Somewhere you choose. I have 2 secure options, as promised. And the ledger? Still with me. Not transferred. Not yet. I looked at Mia. She folded her arms. Go. Before somebody orders pie and starts a live stream. I followed Grant outside through a side exit, keeping 3 feet between us. He did not touch me. He did not rush me. At the alley mouth, he stopped and let me choose the direction. For 10 minutes, that felt like proof we could still do this differently. Then his phone buzzed. He read the message and went completely still. What? I asked. The city archive mirror was accessed again. By whom? The credential belongs to you. I stared at him. That's impossible. I know. Do you? The question came out sharper than I intended. Grant's face closed around something I could not read. Someone is building a record that makes you look involved. Then we expose it before they do. Or we remove you from their reach. Grant. He looked past me toward the street, calculating distance, exits, threats. Not asking. Calculating. When his eyes returned to mine, the man who had waited outside my chained door was still there, but fear had begun speaking louder than trust. I need to get you somewhere secure, he said. Need is still a strong word. This time it is the right one. He had not crossed the line yet, but standing in that alley, with my name attached to stolen access and cameras waiting beyond the corner, I could feel him preparing to decide that keeping me safe mattered more than keeping his promise. Then ask me, I said. Grant's eyes stayed on the street beyond my shoulder. Ask you what? Whether I'm willing to go. His jaw tightened. Evan, this is not the moment to turn procedure into a principle. It became a principle the second you decided your fear mattered more than my answer. A black SUV turned into the alley. No lights. No markings. Grant moved before I could react, stepping between me and the vehicle as its rear door opened. 2 people in plain clothes got out. Secure transport, one of them said. I looked at Grant. You called them. Before I came into the diner. The words hit harder than the engine noise. Before you asked me to leave. The street was compromised. So you arranged this before giving me a choice. I arranged an option. The woman near the SUV reached for the rear door. Mr. Cole, we need to move. No, Grant turned slightly. Evan, tell them to leave. I can't do that. You can. You won't. His voice dropped. Your credentials were used in a federal breach. Your address is circulating online. Someone may be trying to frame you for an operation tied to planned hero incidents. I know the facts. Then understand the risk. I understand it better than you think. What I do not understand is why you promised not to decide for me, then made the decision before walking through the door. The agents exchanged a glance. Grant noticed and raised one hand. Give us a minute. They stepped back, but the SUV remained. So did the open door. A choice already built around one acceptable answer. The ledger, I said. Where is it? Secure. Where? You don't need that location. The alley seemed to lose sound. You transferred it. He did not answer immediately, which was answer enough. Grant. A restricted federal team has it. You told me it was still with you. It was when I said that. And when were you planning to tell me you handed over the one piece of evidence with my name in it? After you were. Secure. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. Of course. I limited access, using the same systems that gave a dead man my address. This team is isolated from the municipal network. That is not the point. It is part of the point. No. The point is you promised we would decide together. Grant's control cracked at the edges. I did what I had to do before someone destroyed the evidence or used it to hurt you. You used it to take my choice away. I kept you alive. You do not know that. I know what happens when I wait too long. The sentence came out sharper than the rest. For 1 second, I saw the fear beneath everything. The fear that if he did not move first, someone would pay for it. Then it vanished behind responsibility. Behind the hero. It should have made me softer. Instead, it made the truth clearer. I am not whoever you failed before, I said. Grant went still. And I am not a second chance you get to manage correctly. That is not what this is. Then what is it? He looked at the SUV, the street, the rooftops. Everywhere except me. It is me refusing to gamble with your life. By treating it like it belongs to you. His eyes finally met mine. The hurt there almost made me stop. Almost. You were right in my apartment, he said quietly. You are still choosing. But choices made without full information are not freedom. Then give me the information. Some of it is classified. There it is. That does not mean your voice does not matter. It means it matters until you decide I do not know enough to have one. Neither of us moved. The agents waited. The open SUV door waited. Everything around Grant was designed to make his version of safety inevitable. "I'm not going with them," I said. His expression changed. "You may already be under investigation. Then I'll get a lawyer. That could expose you further. My life is already exposed. Evan, please." It was the first time he had said the word to me. It would have mattered yesterday. "Tell them to leave," I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then gave the agents a small nod. The woman closed the door, but neither agent got back inside. "They'll keep their distance," Grant said. I said, "Leave. I can't leave you unprotected." There it was. Not anger. Not cruelty. Something worse, because it came wrapped in care. He had heard every boundary and decided fear outranked all of them. "Then we are done," I said. Grant's face emptied. "Do not say that because you're angry." "I'm not saying it because I'm angry." My chest hurt enough to make breathing feel mechanical. "I'm saying it because I trusted you with the exact thing I was afraid of, and you proved I was right to be afraid. I was trying to protect you." "I know. That was the part that broke something. You keep saying that like intention changes what you did." He stepped toward me, then stopped himself. "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. Evan, do not follow me. Do not send anyone to my building. Do not access my records. Do not make another decision with my name attached to it. If there is an immediate threat, then tell me. Ask me. Let me choose." His silence was the final answer. I walked away. No one stopped me. Grant did not use his strength, his title, or the agents waiting behind him. He let me leave, which should have felt like proof of respect. Instead, it felt like arriving too late. I went back to the diner only long enough to tell Mia I needed a few days. Then I packed one bag and left my apartment before sunset, using cash and routes no city system would flag. By midnight, I was sitting in a borrowed room above a closed laundromat, staring at a blank wall and feeling less safe than I had beside Grant. Disappearing used to make the fear quieter. Now it only made the silence louder. Across the city, the ledger was in federal hands. My credentials were tied to a breach, and the one person who might have helped me had become the reason I no longer knew what help was supposed to feel like. I had gotten exactly what I wanted from the beginning. Distance from America's greatest hero. It did not feel like freedom. By morning, the silence had stopped feeling like safety and started feeling like surrender. I sat on the edge of the borrowed bed with my bag packed at my feet, staring at Grant's number without calling it. Leaving Baltimore would have been easy. I still knew how to disappear. New city. New job. New routines built around never standing where anyone important might look twice. Then I opened the copies of the ledger I had saved before Grant took the original. One detail kept bothering me. The incidents were arranged by record age, but the initials beside them were not names. They were archive classifications. Whoever built the list had not just studied old systems. They were still using one. I pulled up the municipal archive map and found the only location connected to every classification code, the emergency records relay beneath the old civic transit station. A dead facility on paper. A perfect place to alter logs, create false access records, and trigger incidents before responders knew where to look. I could leave, or I could stop someone from turning more civilians into observations. I called Grant. He answered immediately, but said nothing. "The old transit relay," I said. "That's where they're operating." "How sure are you?" His voice was careful. No command. No relief he had not earned. "Sure enough to go." "Evan, do not tell me not to." A breath passed between us. I wasn't going to. That mattered more than I wanted it to. "What do you know?" I asked. "Everything I should have told you yesterday." I waited. Grant continued. "The restricted team found a live transmission hidden inside the ledger binding. Whoever built the network expected us to take it. They used the federal transfer to enter the emergency response grid. So handing it over gave them access. Yes. No excuse. No softening. The false activity under your credentials was meant to make you look like the entry point. And the planned incidents. They're preparing multiple failures across the city. Transit signals, structural alarms, evacuation routes. Enough confusion to study how heroes and civilians react when every system disagrees. I stood and pulled on my jacket. "How long?" "Less than an hour." "Then send me the full data. It contains classified response routes." "Grant, I'm sending it." My phone filled with maps, access logs, and live alerts. No redactions. No missing sections. He had finally given me the truth before deciding what I was allowed to do with it. There are two options, he said. You can stay where you are and guide me remotely, or you can meet me 3 blocks from the relay. If you come, I will not move you, track you, or assign anyone to you without permission. And if I choose something dangerous, I'll tell you I think it's dangerous. Then I'll let you choose. His voice tightened on the last word, but he said it. Send the meeting point. The old transit station had been abandoned long enough for weeds to split the concrete stairs. Grant stood across the street in plain clothes, alone. No SUV. No agents hiding badly behind tinted glass. He did not approach until I crossed him. You came, he said. Do not sound surprised. I'm not. He looked tired enough to be honest. I'm relieved. I handed him my laptop. The relay is still processing records in archive order. If we interrupt the wrong node, the system will trigger every false alarm at once. Can you stop it? Yes, if I reach the maintenance terminal. Grant looked toward the station entrance. It is underground and structurally unstable. That sounded almost like an order. It was information. Better. We entered together. The lower platform smelled like rust, standing water, and overheated wiring. Emergency lights pulsed red along the tunnel. At the first junction, Grant stopped. The central chamber is ahead. I can reach the transmitter faster and destroy the evidence faster. What do you need? 7 minutes at the terminal. Keep the system online until I copy the command history. That increases exposure. It also proves I didn't cause the breach. Grant met my eyes. Every instinct in him wanted to shut the network down immediately. I could see it in the set of his shoulders. 7 minutes, he said. Your call. The terminal was older than I expected, which was good. Old systems had honest weaknesses. I connected my laptop while Grant stood near the tunnel entrance, listening for movement. Someone's coming, he said after 2 minutes. How many? 4. Can you keep them away without cutting power? Yes. Then do that. He moved. The tunnel erupted with footsteps, metal impacts, and one sound that was probably a door becoming permanently optional. Grant never crossed into the terminal room. He held the corridor because that was what I had asked him to do. At 5 minutes, the system tried to lock me out using my forged credentials. I recognized the archive habit immediately. Date before category. Oldest record first. I reversed the sequence, exposed the hidden administrator route, and found the command list controlling every planned failure. Grant, I have it. Can you cancel them? Not all at once. Tell me what to do. Not I'll handle it. Tell me. I routed the transit failures to his screen, kept the structural alarms on mine, and divided the shutdown by priority. Grant disabled the physical transmitter while I killed the false commands in order. One by one, the city map cleared. Train signals stabilized. Evacuation doors reopened. Structural warnings returned to normal. The last red mark vanished with 12 seconds left on the system clock. Then the ceiling above me cracked. Grant reached the terminal room in a blur, stopped at the doorway, and held out his hand. The ceiling is coming down. Will you come with me? Even then, he asked. I took his hand. He pulled me clear as concrete collapsed behind us, but he did not carry me after we reached solid ground. He stayed beside me while we walked out. In the daylight, federal vehicles finally arrived. Grant placed the copied command history in my hands before speaking to them. You decide who receives it, he said. Not me. Not without you. I looked at the evidence, then at him. We give them a duplicate. We keep the original chain intact. Agreed. And my name? Cleared by the command history. You checked. I waited for you to ask. That was not forgiveness. It was proof he understood what forgiveness would require. After the agents took the copy, Grant faced me without the shield of an emergency between us. I lied by omission. I broke our agreement. I used my fear to justify taking your choice. Protecting you does not make any of that acceptable. He did not ask me to understand. He did not tell me he loved me. He simply stood there and accepted that I could still walk away. I'm not ready to pretend it didn't happen, I said. I don't want you to. And I'm not promising this is fixed. I know. I looked back at the station, then at the city still moving because we had chosen to work together instead of deciding for each other. But I'm willing to have another conversation. Grant's expression softened, careful and almost disbelieving. When I choose. Understood. I started walking. After a few steps, I noticed he had not followed. I looked back. You can come with me. He did, matching my pace instead of setting it. We had not repaired everything. But under the city, When fear gave both of us every excuse to become who we had been, we chose differently. For the first time, partnership did not feel like another word for losing myself. Grant and I walked 3 blocks before either of us said anything. Baltimore was waking around us like the city had not nearly been turned into a laboratory. Buses moved. Store gates rattled upward. Somewhere, a man argued with a parking meter as if infrastructure had not already caused enough trouble. "You still have my number," Grant said. That sounded dangerously close to confidence. It was an observation. "You do those?" He glanced at me, then looked forward again. No pressure, no question hidden inside the silence. At the diner, Mia took one look at us and set 2 coffees on the counter. "Are we alive?" she asked. "Temporarily," I said. "Are we speaking?" "Technically." Grant picked up his cup, but did not drink. "I owe you an apology." Mia pointed at me. "Get in line." I almost smiled. Almost. The investigation moved quickly once the command history proved someone had used dormant municipal systems to engineer emergencies and collect behavioral data from civilians and heroes. The copied files exposed the access route. The original chain stayed with me until an independent evidence officer documented every transfer. My forged credentials were cleared. The incident reports were sealed. The family of the boy from the scaffold was notified and protected without their names becoming public. The people behind the network were arrested. Across 3 departments before they could erase the rest of the archive. Grant told me each fact as it happened. He did not decide which details would upset me. He did not replace information with reassurance. When he did not know something, he said, "I don't know." America's greatest hero admitting uncertainty turned out to be less dramatic than the news made it sound, and far more useful. For 2 weeks, we communicated only about the case. Every message from him began with a question. "May I call? Do you want the update now? Would you prefer this in writing?" It was almost irritating. "He's overcorrecting," Mia said one afternoon. "He's practicing." That sounded fond. "You're imagining things." I've seen the footage. The footage was everywhere. Not the classified parts. The station evacuation had been caught by street cameras, including the moment Grant emerged beside me instead of carrying me. Commentators spent days asking who I was and why the country's most powerful man kept looking at me before answering questions. I stopped watching after one host described my expression as mysteriously intimate. I had been checking whether concrete dust was in my mouth. 3 weeks after the relay, Grant asked to meet at the same library where we had first divided the work. I chose the back room. He arrived without a uniform, a security detail, or documents waiting for my signature. "Nothing to hand me?" I asked. "Nothing you haven't requested." "No encrypted drive?" I considered bringing one for nostalgia. That would have been manipulative. I left it in the car. I looked at him. He looked back, completely serious for half a second, then smiled. The joke was bad. I laughed anyway. He waited until the sound faded. "The review board finalized its findings," he said. "My transfer of the ledger violated evidence protocol and your written participation agreement." "You told them that?" "I submitted it." "No one forced you?" "No." He placed one folded page on the table, but did not push it toward me. "I requested formal limits on my authority in civilian protection cases involving personal relationships." The last phrase stayed between us. "Personal relationships?" I asked. Grant's ears turned slightly red. It was the most human thing I had ever seen him do. I was advised to use accurate language. "By a lawyer?" "By several." Terrifying. He nodded toward the page. "You can read it, ignore it, or throw it away. It is not an argument for forgiving me." I opened it. The new policy required informed consent whenever immediate danger allowed it, independent review of emergency overrides, and documented civilian access to information affecting their safety. My conditions from the apartment had become procedure. "You changed the system," I said. "I changed part of it." "Because of me?" "Because you were right." He held my gaze. "And because I never want caring about someone to become an excuse for controlling them again." There it was. Not a declaration designed to corner me. A truth offered without a demand. "You care about me," I said. "Yes." That was very direct. "You dislike evasive answers." "I dislike most answers." I noticed. I folded the page carefully. "I care about you too." Grant went still in the exact way he did before catching something enormous. "You don't have to look alarmed." I'm trying not to assume what that means. That answer settled the last defensive instinct in me. It means I want to try, I said. Slowly. With rules. Your rules. Our rules. His expression changed, not into the polished smile from billboards, but the quieter one I had first seen between frozen pie crusts. I would like that. Our first date happened at the diner after closing because neither of us trusted the internet with restaurant reservations. Mia left a handwritten menu that offered grilled cheese, pie, and emotional accountability. Grant chose grilled cheese. Coward, I told him. I thought accountability was included. There's an additional charge. How much? One honest answer. He considered that. All right. I leaned against the counter. Why did you keep watching me that first day? He could have said I was suspicious. He could have said I noticed the cable. Instead, he looked at me the same way he had across the street, in my apartment, through a phone screen, and under the city. Because everyone else was. Watching the hero, he said. You were watching who needed help. For once, I had no dry answer ready. Months later, people still recognized us sometimes. Grant learned to ask before stepping between me and a camera. I learned that being seen did not automatically mean being trapped. We worked with the city to rebuild the archive system and create safeguards for civilians pulled into hero incidents. He brought strength. I brought suspicion, pattern recognition, and an apparently heroic ability to defeat municipal printers. We argued. We adjusted. We chose again. I had spent 3 years learning how not to be noticed by heroes. Grant Mercer ruined that work in less than 30 seconds. The surprising part was not that America's greatest hero could not stop watching me. It was that, eventually, I stopped wanting him to look away.